Sziasztok mindenkinek! Hello everyone, my name is Christine, and I am the host here at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, the show where we connect your modern life to your Hungarian heritage. We will build bridges between Hungarians who live in Hungary to those with Hungarian heritage who live in all other parts of the world. Not to mention the bridges that we will build between the generations. This podcast is a place where everyone is welcome, where you don't even need to be Hungarian or speak Hungarian to join in on the fun. We will talk about all the things that we love about Hungary, the Hungarian people, and the Hungarian culture, as well as the cool things Hungarian people are doing around the world. We will discover new things, review things you may already know, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to dig a little deeper, then you're in the right place. Join me as we grow this community and continue to connect the circles of Hungarians around us. On this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, I will be speaking with Ildi Wardlaw. She is the creator and owner of Kukucs, a Hungarian language learning subscription box for young children. We will discuss the inspiration for Ildi's journey from Hungary to Scotland, her personal English language learning experience, and her efforts to teach her children to be bilingual, which led her to creating the Kukucs subscription program. As you will see, Kukucs has lots of surprises and opportunities, not only for the bilingual child or grandchild you are trying to raise, but for the parents and grandparents too. So stay tuned to hear all about this language learning opportunity. Make sure you listen until the end of the episode because we have a surprise announcement for our listeners. Please join me in welcoming Ildi Wardlaw, and she is here today to talk about her new business, a subscription box for learning Hungarian. Welcome, Ildi. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for the invite. I'm ever so grateful that you reached out to me so I can talk about my new business.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. Making connections is one of my themes, is connecting Hungarians in the circles of Hungarians. So I'm happy to welcome you into this community that we're building, and it really is growing at a steady rate. So I'm happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Great to be a part of it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so it has become a tradition for me to ask all of my guests to talk a little bit about Hungarian heritage. So tell us a little bit about your Hungarian heritage, because you don't live in Hungary anymore. You live in Scotland. So tell us how it was like for you growing up. Were you involved in a lot of traditional Hungarian things, and then transition into how you ended up in Scotland?
Yes. So I grew up in a city called Debrecen.
Okay.
Debrecen is east of Hungary and is the second largest city in Hungary. If you have the map in front of you, in front of your eyes, it's closer to the Romanian border. I had two younger siblings. We did loads growing up. It was like totally different than, I would say, today's family structures. We lived with my grandparents, so I always had the grandparents around us. We had farm animals, although we didn't live in the farm. So I was brought up, caring for animals and also like tending stuff around the garden as well. So I would say like my mom did prep us for life, At the weekends, I was in the kitchen, baking, cooking, cleaning, helping around the house. And that was pretty much the way my siblings were brought up as well.
I feel like those are all valuable life skills. So, caring for, animals. I mean, if you live in the city, children care for pets. So, those are valuable things. And also you had intergenerational experiences with your grandparents, and I grew up that way too, even in the US. And my children had a little bit of that with my grandparents as well, growing up. And I think there's a lot of value in that because you do learn. And it's also good for the grandparents to be involved with the younger generation. So I feel like it was a very typical growing up experience for you, which was lovely. So tell me, how did you end up in Scotland?
Yes. So as a child growing up, I always had this dream of going somewhere. And one of the places was Scotland. I
Okay.
know it's ridiculous. People dream about like sunny places. For me, it was Scotland. And somehow I just love the castles, the mountains, the bagpipe. And funny story, really, I was 21. I went out to a nightclub. I met this guy. He said he works in Scotland. He is Hungarian. He was just home visiting. And I'm like, oh my God, just have me. I want to go to Scotland. And that's where the story started. So he had me. He moved over to Scotland back in 2010.
I mean, I feel like it was fate that you met that person when you were out at the club. Did you remain friends with this person?
No, if you believe in manifestation, I would
do.
say I did manifest Scotland into my life.
You did. You did. So now you're in Scotland and you are married and you have two young kids. And your experience with speaking English, did you learn English in Hungary before you got to Scotland? Or what was that experience for you with language learning as an adult?
So I did learn English at primary school. But as I entered high school, I learned French. So whatever I learned at primary school, I totally forget it. So obviously, before I moved to Scotland, I kind of tried to like pick up on the language, but it's not as easy. And, my mom was so worried that I'm going to go to this country by myself. I don't even speak the language. And, I always had that belief that you will learn the language in that situation, in life.
Right.
And it will be so much better than, learning the language in school, in my eyes. You are forced to use the language daily. So what happened is I moved to Scotland, but then when I started working, I was surrounded by lots of Hungarians.
Wow.
So I didn't really need it to use the English as such. But then I met my now husband, and that's where things got tricky because, there was this great guy, he spoke English, I didn't. And then that's when I knew that I need to change things. So we went to live in another city, and then I entered into this general English course. It was a 25 weeks long English course, and that's where I picked up the language.
Wow.
And then I just basically came out from that Hungarian community I was in, because when we moved to this other city, there were no Hungarians around me. So it was just me and my husband. And then I started working in like retail. So obviously I had to use English daily to interact with customers.
Right. So I feel like everything that you're saying really supports the fact that immersion into a language is really the best way to learn.
So very important. Yes.
So, and also the motivation that you met your husband and he spoke English was a secondary factor, which is also good. So you said there were so many Hungarians when you moved to Scotland. Like, that's amazing. So clearly when you went over, you had a little bit of comfort. And I'm sure your mom was comforted by the fact that you were with people that, spoke the language, that you could feel comfortable and ask questions. How is it that there's so many Hungarians in that one area where you moved to?
So I think how that worked back in the day, between 2000 and 2010, maybe even after that, people were easy to move to another country without speaking the language. Because, one moved out, let's say, from Debrecen to Edinburgh. And then that person had another 2 friends come over, another 3 friends. And that's how loads of people I actually met in Edinburgh were from Debrecen, because they just had each other, like, imagine a pyramid.
Wow. That's amazing. I guess that's how communities are built historically, too. So it does make a lot of sense. We're here to talk about your business, which is Kukucs, a subscription to help children at the 0 to 6 year age learn Hungarian, especially when there is only one parent that speaks the language. So let's talk about what inspired you, because you had inspiration from your own family experience to create this business. Let's talk a little bit about how it is to raise bilingual children. Tell us a little bit about that. What was your experience?
So my experience, obviously, I didn't grow up in a bilingual family. My parents were Hungarians. I grew up in Hungary. I moved to the UK. Obviously, my husband is Scottish. I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
I thought like, oh, raising a bilingual child is going to be easy. I'm just going to talk to him Hungarian, and my husband is just going to talk to him in English, and then he's going to pick it up, and then it's going to be like that. And it's going to be happy days. But it's not. It's so much struggle from my end as well, because I had the intention when my son was born, I'm going to speak to him Hungarian. I'm going to read Hungarian books. We are going to sit down. We are going to watch Hungarian cartoons on YouTube. But when you're immersed in English daily, your brain doesn't switch to Hungarian that easily. And what I found as well, I've been in the UK for 30 years. I forgot loads of things. And I do notice that when I talk to my parents and, I would like to say something to my mom, but it's just, I can't remember the word or how to say it in Hungarian. And how could I give something to my son if I don't remember how to say it or how to express it? So, I think the expectations of other people as well, like the grandparents, so my parents, like he's going to learn Hungarian and then we can talk to him, chat to him, it's going to be great. But then when he not started to talk Hungarian, that's where all the pressure came in from their side as well.
Mm-hmm.
That all you're getting is, why is he not speaking yet? Why is he not talking Hungarian? Why is he talks English?
Right. Well, I mean, it is a challenge for any parents to do that system, to have one person completely speak to your child in one language and the other do the other language, because it's like a dedication. And not that you weren't dedicated, it's just challenging when you're surrounded, when you go out to the stores and to the park and all of that. No one is speaking Hungarian when you go out, unless you go back to the community where you first moved. So you could see that there are challenges, and someone that isn't doing this, they don't realize all of the steps that it would take to really, fully immerse your child into like a dual language system. It's not easy. And then I know you had another challenge, which we spoke about once the pandemic hit for your son. So tell us a little bit how that caused a roadblock for you with teaching him Hungarian.
So everything went really well, according to my plans of talking to him Hungarian, reading to him Hungarian. But then the pandemic hit and I was a key worker. So that meant that I was working while my husband stayed home to look after our son. And Duncan was hitting that 2.5-year mark when he just started talking. Mm-hmm. And obviously, because my husband was home, started talking in English. And every time I came home from work, obviously I had to use the English as well, because that's how I felt comfortable, knowing that my husband understood what I was saying to Duncan as well.
Right.
And I didn't want him to feel like almost like left out. Maybe that was my fault. Maybe I should have stick to Hungarian no matter what. And every time I took Duncan out to the park as well, or shopping, or baby groups, all those sorts of things, I used English instead of Hungarian again, because people made me feel like I was an outsider if I didn't speak English. If I used the Hungarian.
Yes.
We went to parks as well, and I felt like people are not talking to us because I'm using my own language. Whereas if I used, English, and then they would walk up to us and then just start chatting. Because when you're a new mom, you feel like lonely and you would like to make friends.
Right. I feel like those are really common challenges for people. And, what you experienced, I don't think it was unique, because I think you're just part of a whole group of people, or, around the world, that if they're going through the bilingual teaching of their child, and especially because you're raising your children in a country where you didn't grow up. So you're not an outsider. You've lived there for 13 years, but essentially speaking out in public, it raises some challenge issues for you as an adult too, with socializing with the adults and the children in play groups and such. So you could see how little things and little challenges add up to not a big problem, but you can see how it was more difficult to completely immerse, your little one in Hungarian and be bilingual. Additionally, did you feel that your son Duncan was resistant to learning also at all? Did you experience that?
Yeah, of course. There were times when, I said something in Hungarian to him and he said oh, mom, stop. Whatever you're saying, it sounds blah, blah. And I'm like, excuse me.
It sounds blah, blah. I love
Hungarian
that.
is, first of all, not blah, blah. And secondly, you don't understand because you don't speak the language yet. So yeah, we went through times like that. And you know what? Now I learned that you need to make this whole language learning process as much fun as possible. And if they resist, just take a step back. Don't give up. Just take a step back and try later again. Because that's what happened with me. I took a huge step back and I didn't come back to it. I basically give up. So there was no consistency of language learning.
Right. Well, sometimes you have to step back and just reassess, what you were doing and what you think worked and what you think you can change going forward to, because you also want your children to be thriving and feel comfortable when they're, learning new things, not a pressure situation at age 3 or 4. It should be something that's natural. So, I think that was probably good how you did that. You also have a daughter. And
Yes.
How old is she now?
So Hope is 19 months old.
Okay. So we discussed a little bit about how you were in a situation where you were, I guess, teaching Hope a little bit more Hungarian at a younger age. The pandemic was over, so you had more one-on-one time with her. So what did you experience with Duncan now seeing his little sister learning Hungarian? Like, what was his reaction?
So I'm going to take you back to the very, very beginning of this.
Oh, please do. Absolutely.
So during the pandemic, I went through some self love and self-help courses. I learned more about me and, what I really wanted out of life. I've started reading self-help books. And
that's great.
I know. So because of that, obviously, my parenting has changed a lot as well. And I'm not saying I became a totally new person, but how I looked at things has changed like almost 360. So when I had Hope, I was a different parent to what I was to Duncan.
Well, before you continue, that is how it should be. I feel like in life, if you're not learning every day, then you're really not growing as a person. And, we have to be able as humans realize that, what we did, what are the successes of what we've done and what we can change next time. Not that you were a bad parent or, not that you were bad at your previous job, but you have to do self-assessment because that's how you become better. And so I think that's important for everyone to hear too, that, it's important to do those things in life. So
definitely.
Yes.
So when I had Hope, I knew that doesn't matter who says what, I will speak Hungarian to her. If Duncan doesn't understand it when he's around, I will repeat it in English, but I need him to hear the Hungarian. Yeah. And now I see when my husband is around as well, I keep talking to the kids in Hungarian. And is he comfortable with? I believe he is, but he is happy to, let me know if he would like to understand what I'm saying or telling the kids.
That's great.
Back in the days when I had Duncan 6 years ago, these little things used to bug me and bother me. So I think I had to go through this mind change.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's great that, your husband has always been supportive and you've reassessed, which we all do. So that was a good thing for you. And now you're working towards having Hope being bilingual as well as Duncan. So now is he more interested now? Do you see him coming back, into the bilingual fold?
Yes.
Good. Tell us about that.
Obviously, because of Hope being at home, so she's not at nursery, I'm staying home with her. So we are watching Hungarian cartoons. I'm singing Hungarian songs and rhymes to her. And because Duncan hears that almost on a daily basis, actually started repeating it.
That's good.
And just out of nowhere, sometimes, I let the kids play and all I hear is Duncan telling Hope off in Hungarian.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh my God. And it did happen that I constantly just speaking in Hungarian to Hope. And obviously he hears that. It doesn't matter if he's playing at the background, he still hear it. So he is immersed in that moment, in that hour, in that day in Hungarian.
Right. I feel like it switched from being more of like not necessarily a chore or a lesson to being more of like, this is just what we do in life. So
Yes,
it's natural for him now. So now you were inspired by all of this, all of your experiences and with your children, trying to teach them to speak Hungarian, and they both had different experiences. So you had this aha moment that you could help other people benefit from your experience, and you created Kukucs Box, a subscription that people can receive to assist them in learning or teaching their children in a very playful way, like you're doing with your children. So before we talk about what's in your subscription box, you picked the name Kukucs Box. And I know I told you that my grandfather always used to play with me and even my children and go, Kukucs. And so tell us what that means for those who don't know what Kukucs means.
So Kukucs means peekaboo in Hungarian. The name was basically when you receive a subscription box. Subscription box is a surprise. Month to month, you don't know what's going to be in the box. So when you or your child opens up the box, it's a surprise. It's almost like a Kukucs. I'm here to surprise you. I'm here to please you.
I love that. So clearly I was pronouncing it incorrectly. It's Kukucs with a little bit of a ch at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, now that when I have grandchildren, hopefully in the near future, and I know my family's listening, so yes, I'm talking to you guys. That's great. I'll be able to say Kukucs properly when I do peekaboo with them. Okay. So tell us about this subscription, because you have a lot of options as far as how long they could subscribe for. So give us the rundown of what's in 1 month subscription box, and then we'll talk about how often they can, subscribe. So tell us, for example, what one box would look like.
So I've created 2 age groups. There is 0 to 3 and 3 to 6 years old. There are plans to go up to 6+ years, but that's for the future. So what's in a box? A box is based on a Hungarian book that I order from Hungary. When the book arrives, based on that book, I will put together activity sheets, sometimes rhymes booklet, flashcards, posters, and there is some arts and crafts activities in the box as well as a monthly surprise.
So how did you choose which books that you wanted to put in the box? What type of research did you do to make that happen?
Well, first of all, it is very hard to pick a book that you cannot actually hold and open and see the pages and see the size of the book, even smell the book. I love books. I am absolutely passionate about books. I would say how I choose the books is, especially for the 3 to 6 age range, is I want the book to tell a story, and not just a story, but almost like something that teaches the children to something.
Right.
So the book in last month's box was about sadness and happiness, teaching the children about those emotions through a very kind story.
Okay, so it's like a little bit of a learning tool, just like you would purchase a book for your child that you would read before bed.
We are quite a mindful family. Even Duncan is doing like daily affirmations and stuff like that. So it is very important for me to continue that road just in Hungarian.
Wow, that's great. I think, it's not just learning Hungarian. There's a lot of positivity in the things that they receive, which is fantastic. Okay, so tell us about the subscription process. If someone wants to subscribe, what is that like?
Easy peasy. Head on to my website. They have the 2 options, either the 0 to 3 or the 3 to 6 age range. They click on the picture, and after they can decide if, let's say, they are not committed to sign up to a 3, 6, or 12-month subscription, then they can just buy a 1 month box. They can try it out, no commitment. And then they have the option to sign up to either a 3, a 6, or a 12-month subscription. And what they get with that is basically they just save money on a longer subscription.
Right. Like subscriptions are generally like that. The longer you do it, you save a little bit,
exactly.
which is
yes.
Great.
And when they sign up to a longer subscription, they commit to the whole term. It's like, signing up to your mobile phone contract. You commit for the whole term.
That's great. And I think too, you mentioned on your website that there are so many positive advantages. And I'm going to read them and then I'm going to let you comment on them. So you talk about how it's quality time with your kids. It's ready to use out of the box, which who doesn't love that? Because, setting things up is always a little bit of a pain, especially when you're a parent of young children. It's sustainable and reusable. You get the benefit of being bilingual and it keeps the Hungarian heritage alive. Those are all great positive qualities. Did you want to expand on any of those in particular?
Yes, if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
So quality time, it is very important for me, as well as I believe for loads of other parents to spend quality time with their children. Let's face it, although I don't work full time just now, I used to work full time. And having a full-time job, run a household, pass hand to your children, it is pretty hard and exhausting. So the last thing on your mind is, activities, sit down, print out, even go into Google and find some activities that you can download, let's say in Hungarian, pretty time consuming. People don't have that time anymore.
I agree.
So even that's why this box is already ready for you. You just need to open it, take everything out, and even if you just do 5 minutes a day, have 5 minutes of quality time with your child that they will remember.
Absolutely. I remember. So first, let me say that if anyone is thinking like, okay, well, it's one box a month. Like, what is one box going to do? One book, and I'm drawing back into, I don't know, 25, 26 years ago of my own experience of being a young mother, reading a book every night to my kids before bed, because I was also working full time at that time, was one of the best times of the day. One book. I remember reading books for weeks, like the same book, because then my kids were like, oh, read this again. And, to the point where I didn't even need to look at the book. I could turn the page while I was half asleep, and I had it memorized and so did they. And which is really a great thing, because if you're reading that same book every day to them, maybe before bed or whatever it is, you're doing your activities, you can read it every day or twice a day or for months. And they're getting not only the quality time, like you said, but that's like little mini immersion of the language.
Children love a repetition.
Yeah.
And that's why you are only getting one book a month and not 2 or 3, because it would be too overwhelming. Because let me tell you this, like I used to buy lots of Hungarian books when we went on to, holidays, or even there are like Facebook groups dedicated to selling secondhand Hungarian books. And I used to order some. The book came, me and Duncan were so happy to open up the books, and then it ended up on a shelf. We never ever looked at it ever again. And I'm like, this is not good. We have all these Hungarian books in the house that we are not using. So what I want parents to do when they receive the box is to use everything in the box, repeating the process.
Absolutely.
If it gets boring by day 18, that's all right. But your child will learn a lot from it.
Right. I agree. And especially with reading books. And, I was a former English teacher, so that never really leaves you. And reading is so important, even through the older teen ages, believe it or not. But that's a topic for another time. But for example, my kids would have me read 5 books if I let them. But, at nighttime, everybody needs to go to sleep. So it was always 2 books. You get 2 books, So just make one of them the Hungarian learning book and then another book. And then it mixes it up a little bit. So that's just an idea. If someone feels like the repetition isn't fun, like repetition is good. Humans crave not repetition, but, they crave like a consistency.
The familiar. Yeah. They want familiar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's pretty cool. So now you mentioned Facebook, because when you subscribe to Kukucs box, you also get access to the private Facebook group that you run. Tell us about that, because that's a big bonus.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought of that. So when you receive let's say the box and you open it, obviously it clearly says like what you need to do in the box and how you need to use what's in the box. I didn't just want to leave people at that point and then just get on with it. I wanted to give them the support that they need because, as I said, parents get busy with life. So
Sure.
this Facebook group is there to remind people, don't forget, you have that tool, open it, do it, use it. I also upload videos, of me reading the books. If they had enough of reading the books, just please put that up on the screen, and then your child can hear the book read it by me, and just other little activities that I do with the kids as well, so they can see how we are using that. And these things, I don't share them on Instagram or on my normal Facebook page. So they get this constant support if they need it.
That's great. And I feel like that was really important because you don't want it to be just like, oh, here's your box and have fun. Sometimes, people do need a little bit of assistance because what might be, let's just say, easy for me because I was an English teacher and my brain would already start to say, oh, I could do this, and that. That might not be the case for someone else who doesn't have that type of mind because people have different minds for their own, interests and careers. So that's super helpful for people to have access to that. And you said it is private, so they can even message each other. And I'm sure the community is growing now. So can you give us an example of maybe one question that somebody asked or like an interesting conversation that maybe you had in your Facebook group to let the listeners know like what it's like when they get the subscription and what it would be like for them to be a part of that Facebook group?
Yeah. So one conversation would be like, little girl is 3, parents are both Hungarian, but so they speak Hungarian at home and the little girl is at nursery. So they are actually afraid that the little girl is not going to speak English now. So that's their worry. See how families work differently.
Right.
So what they started doing, they started speaking English at home because of their worries. Whereas I had to remind them, you already built up that environment where she knows when she goes through the door, it's home, mommy and daddy both speak Hungarian. And now you're trying to confuse her by switching to English just because you worried that she's not going to pick up on the English. So I had to remind them, just stick to what you're already doing, use the resources, because she is going to pick up on the English outside of your house. There are plenty of opportunities as well as going to nursery.
Right. Absolutely. Especially because there's so many opportunities outside of the household, because if they're in an English speaking country, they'll be immersed in that, especially as, that 3-year-old gets older and goes to school, there'll be more talking. So that was very good advice. So I'm sure the person that asked that question, that probably helped other people as well, which I think is, the value of that Facebook group and feeling comfortable.
We can always learn from each other and other experiences, although the experiences are going to be different to each of our families.
Yeah. And it seems like it's a very non-judgmental place where people can go and feel comfortable to ask questions that they might not want to ask other people, because you're all going through the same thing if you're part of this Facebook group, because you have a subscription. So, you can always learn things from different people.
And as I said to you, my parents were always bringing up that the kids are not speaking Hungarian yet. And I'm not the only one. I've spoken to many people who had the same experience. But then I had to remind myself, how would my parents know what it feels like when they didn't go through the same?
Sure.
They didn't try to teach bilingual children in a different country. When I did understand that, and I had that my mindset shift again that, okay, they are saying those things because they don't understand it. That's fine. Just let them say it. That has nothing to do with me.
Right. It's true. And I think that's just something we have to come to terms with, because your parents' experience is different. Your experience is different. And now your children's experience is even different from you and their grandparents. So putting pressure on ourselves sometimes to conform to all the voices around us isn't healthy. And then we have to, just like you did, reassess and go from there and know that, your child is going to thrive if given the correct tools. Let's talk about the subscriptions a little bit. Now, currently, Kukucs Box is new and hot off the presses. You're only shipping to the UK. So tell us about any future plans on shipping outside of the UK.
Yes. So even before I started the business, I had these great plans of, obviously, let's see where this business takes me. And I'm hoping that as of next year, I can start shipping worldwide.
Wow.
I know.
That's really exciting.
Loads of things happening at the background, as well as doing monthly boxes. I'm thinking about doing quarterly boxes that would have different themes, because now for the monthly subscription box, I don't work with a theme. I work with whatever is in the book. I work with the book story.
Right.
But for the quarterly book boxes, I'm thinking about creating like themes. Like, we have, if I break the year down in quarters, we have Christmas, Halloween, Easter, the different like spring, summer, the season changes as well. So I could do loads with that. And another little spoiler here is
we like spoilers.
Because the box is not here to teach your children Hungarian. It is a tool that helps you to be consistent on, teaching them Hungarian.
Right.
But you will hit the point where, let's say, you want to teach them the Hungarian ABC.
Okay.
And I would like to create a box that, all the content of the box will help you teach the Hungarian ABC as well, for example.
Wow. Well, I feel like your business is going to keep growing. And I feel like some of these spoilers that you're giving us are great, because it's definitely something for us to look forward to. I think you'll have no problem shipping outside of the UK. I think people are going to love this. I think there are so many people, and I can only speak for the US. We have so many examples of people being dual language households, and so many opportunities that people would love to, even if it was on a seasonal basis, receive these books to help encourage their children to speak Hungarian better. That would be fantastic. So in addition to Kukucs Box, it's also important to mention that you kind of started a little bilingual Hungarian play group. How exciting. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have. So if the listeners don't know, I used to live in Edinburgh, Scotland. Edinburgh is the capital city of Scotland. And there used to be, or there is still, a Hungarian playgroup. But they are only on for once a month. And they break off for the summer break, the summer holidays as well. There is no ideal if you would like to immerse in Hungarian your children.
Right.
And I moved out of Edinburgh a year ago. I'm only 40 minutes away, but it's still manageable if you're coming from Edinburgh or the surrounding areas where I am just now. And I know there is a huge Hungarian community over in this county where I am just now. And again, because I started the business, I was thinking about more opportunities, how I could immerse my own children into the Hungarian language. And of course, I've been playing with this idea for a while now. But as with anything else and everything else, you're like, you've never done this, you're not going to be good at it, you don't even know where to start.
Yes, self-doubt is a demon that we need to tame. So
it's great that I don't self-sabotage.
Good.
I like to believe that I don't. And when I have an idea, I quickly get on the train and start doing it. So I started talking to people I knew, and they said, like, go talk to these people. So I went. There's this baby and toddler group, me and Hope goes to on the Wednesdays. So I already had this community center I was going into. So I just had to talk to people there. They said, like, hey, there is a space here on the Saturday mornings. If you want it, come and try it out. And they even offered the first 4 sessions for free.
Wow.
just to trial it out.
Good.
And if I felt that there is a need for this, then we can continue. And we already had our 4 sessions, and it was quite busy, I have to say.
That's exciting. That's great. So I imagine you'll be continuing with that.
Yes, I've decided that obviously there's a need for it. I'm going to continue. We had children from babies to up until age 8.
Aww.
And, it's great because the parents have the opportunity to sit down and talk to other parents as well, have a coffee, a tea. We have snacks for the children as well. And you find that some of these families have both parents Hungarian, or just the mom Hungarian, or just the dad Hungarian. So it's quite a variety.
There's so much value in all of that. Even the fact that the children aren't all the same age, because they do learn from each other, which is great. So congratulations on that. That's an amazing accomplishment there. And, you could almost connect what you've done with this play group to your private Facebook group that you have for Kukucs Box, because you might be able to inspire some other people that, don't live in your area, but somewhere in the UK that also maybe want to start a play group as, using you as an inspiration. So that's pretty cool. I did see, I think you put a few videos on social media. Yeah. So it was pretty great. That's amazing. Okay. So can you give the listeners a final thought, your final plug about Kukucs Box and how it's such a positive thing for children?
Yes. So the box is here to inspire you as a Hungarian speaking parent to help your child learn the Hungarian language and for your family to keep the Hungarian heritage alive.
Yeah. And you said, I believe it was either somewhere on social media or on your website, that it covers 3 very important things: consistency, patience, and cultural immersion. And I think you did a fine job being inspired and really putting this product out very quickly. A little spoiler alert, the podcast is going to be gifting 3 Kukucs boxes, 1 monthly box for 3 lucky listeners. So stay tuned, and I'll be working with you, Ildi, to make that happen. Even if it's an international shipping, we're going to kind of put it out there.
We'll work it out.
Absolutely, because it's going to be international very soon. So that's exciting for the listeners, and more on that, how that contest will run. So tell people how they can contact you, how they can see what you're doing, all the social medias in your website. Obviously, I'll put that in the show notes, but tell us how they can do that.
Yes, so probably the easier is if you head to my website, www.kukucsbox.com. So that's www.kukucsbox.com. And you will find my Facebook, my Instagram, my TikTok handle, and you can even drop me an email from there.
Perfect. It seems super easy, and this is just the beginning of the Kukucs Box, because I'm sure pretty soon you're going to be in all the continents, which is pretty great. Well, maybe not in the polar ones, Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I appreciate that you came on and told us all about your wonderful tool of how to teach children and immerse them and get them excited, not only to speak Hungarian, but to be immersed in their Hungarian heritage, which is basically why we're here on this podcast. So thanks so much, Ildi. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. Don't forget to check the show notes for information about this episode and how you can connect with Ildi Wardlaw on all of her social media platforms, and for information about how you can purchase a subscription of Kukucs Box on her website. And don't forget to check my social media for information about how you can enter to win a free 1-month Kukucs Box subscription. We will be giving away 3 subscriptions, so be sure to check both of our social medias for contest rules and entry dates. A big thanks to my audio editor, Tori Irvin, for working her audio magic on this episode and every episode of this podcast. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with special license from Envato Market. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts so we can continue to connect our modern lives with our Hungarian heritage and grow this Hungarian heritage community. Until next time, goodbye everyone. Sziasztok mindenkinek!